Excluded from my sister's wedding, I went on vacation. When the wedding fell apart, my whole family frantically tried to reach me. "You're overreacting. It's just a wedding," my mother said. I was not invited to my own sister's wedding. Instead, I scheduled a trip. Days later, my relatives blew up my phone. I sat there, staring at my screen, reading the message for the 5th time. "Hey, just wanted to let you know the guest list is finalized and we had to make some tough cuts. Hope you understand. Love you." Tough cuts. Tough cuts. I wasn't some distant cousin. I wasn't an old family acquaintance whom they hadn't seen in years. I was her brother. And my sister, the same sister I had assisted through every crisis, heartbreak, and moment of self-doubt, had just cut me out as an afterthought. I glanced at the screen, a slow pang of unbelief spreading into my chest. I nearly laughed, because this had to be a mistake. I took up the phone and called my mother. She responded on the second ring, her voice upbeat. "Hey sweetheart, what's up?" I didn't bother making small talk. "I just got a message from Emily. She says the guest list is finalized and I'm not on it." There was a pause. Just long enough to prove what I had previously suspected. "Oh honey," my mother sighed. She always used that voice to make me feel like I was being unreasonable. "It's just a wedding. Don't make a big deal out of this. Just a wedding." I felt a hot stinging coil in my stomach. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice unusually calm. "Mom, I'm her brother. How am I not invited to my own sister's wedding?" She produced a tisk sound, as if I were a toddler having a tantrum. "It's not personal. They had to keep the guest list small and—" "Mom." I cut her off. "I just saw Emily's Instagram post. She invited 150 people." Silence. Then, a forced chuckle. "Well, you know how things are. Weddings are expensive. And maybe they assumed you wouldn't mind skipping this one." I felt like I had been hit in the stomach. "Wouldn't mind?" I asked. "Mom, I've been there for Emily through it all. I helped her relocate twice. When she lost her job, we covered half of her rent. And I was the one who helped her get over her last breakup. But now I'm not good enough to be there on her special day." "Oh, stop being dramatic," my mother remarked with a sigh. "It's just one day. You're overreacting." I laughed briefly and without humor. Overreacting, right? I could already predict how things would go. I would argue. My mother would shrug me off. Emily would certainly provide a half-hearted apologies later. I'd be expected to forgive and forget. Because that is what I have always done. Not this time. Something within me cracked. If I wasn't worthy of inclusion, then fine, I would not be. I hung up without saying anything and began browsing through my phone. If I wasn't planning to attend Emily's wedding, then I was going to be somewhere much nicer. I was going on a vacation. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I wasn't the type of guy who got upset over trivial matters. I had previously let a lot slide. Emily had repeatedly forgotten my birthday. She would only call me when she needed something. Our mother always wanted me to be the understanding one. Emily managed to get away with murder. But this was an entirely new level of disdain. I wasn't going to sit around moping while my sister and the rest of the family played happy little wedding without me. If I wasn't significant enough to be featured, then I wasn't significant enough to be present when they needed me. I grabbed my laptop and began looking up flights. If Emily could have the happiest day of her life, then I planned to enjoy the best week of my life. It took less than an hour to plan. I reserved all-inclusive accommodations at a 5-star resort in the Caribbean. Suite with an ocean view, spa services, and access to a private beach. I had always convinced myself that such a trip would be too pricey. Not this time. I wasn't just traveling for a holiday. I was making a statement. When the wedding weekend came around, I was already on a plane, enjoying champagne in first class. I made sure to upload a picture, legs extended out, drink in hand, with this caption. "Guess I got cut from the guest list, but I think I'll survive." The reactions were nearly immediate. Some of my cousins sent laughing emojis. My aunt, the only rational member in the family, commented, "Good for you. Should have taken me with you." But what's the best reaction? That came from my mother. She sent me 3 texts in a row. Mom asks, "Where are you?" My mom. "Are you seriously missing your sister's wedding over this?" Mother. "You're being petty." Petty? I wasn't even close to finishing. I responded with a photo of the beach, complete with white sand, crystal blue ocean, and a postcard perfect view. Then I shut off the phone. I wasn't about to let them guilt me. Not this time. For the first time in many years, I was not putting my family first. I was putting myself first. And it felt incredible. By the time I arrived in paradise, I had entirely eliminated any lingering remorse. The moment I walked out of the airport, the warm ocean breeze touched me, bearing the aroma of salt and tropical flowers. A private car was waiting to drive me to the resort. A stylish black SUV with chilled towels and bottled water in the backseat. Yeah. This was far better than a wedding. As we drove down the coast, I reflected on how right I had been to accomplish this. Back home, my family was presumably busy preparing for the big day. My mother was probably making excuses for why I wasn't present. My sister was laughing with her bridesmaids, not giving me a second thought. But I wasn't treated as an afterthought here. Here, I was the priority. My priority. The resort was something out of a fantasy. The lobby has enormous palm trees blooming within. A massive open-air architecture that allowed in the ocean wind. And the kind of service where you were greeted with a cocktail before you checked in. My room? Unreal. Floor-to-ceiling windows and a private balcony and the most gorgeous king-size bed I'd ever seen. I threw down my things, strolled out onto the balcony, and simply took it all in. Then, just to make matters worse, I took a picture of the scenery and shared it with this caption. When one door closes, another one opens, preferably to a beachside suite with unlimited margaritas. I knew it would find its way back to my family, and honestly, I hoped it did. Because for once, they could understand what it was like to be left out. And I was only getting started. The first full day of my trip was simply fantastic. I began the morning with room service, which included fluffy pancakes, fresh fruit, and coffee that was so wonderful it ruined every cup I'd ever tasted. Then I spent the entire day doing precisely what I wanted. No responsibilities. There's no family turmoil. Just me, the ocean, and a timetable focused only on my own enjoyment. By the afternoon, I was lounging on a sunbed by the infinity pool, martini in hand, watching the waves roll in. Every so often, I'd check at my phone, not to check in with my family. But look at the growing amount of responses to my vacation blogs. The comments were gold. Cousin Jake. Bro, where are you even? Aunt Lisa. Okay, now you're just showing off. An old college acquaintance says, dude, invite me next time. Finally, I received a notification that made me smirk. Emily saw your article. Oh, now she was paying attention. I could just imagine her reaction, sitting in the bridal room, sipping inexpensive champagne, scrolling through Instagram only to see me having my best life while she is anxious about her wedding. Good. I leaned back, took another sip of my beverage, and thought, enjoy your special day, sis. I hope it's all you wanted. However, when the sun began to set, something unusual occurred. My phone started to explode. Initially, I ignored it. I figured it was just more people reacting to my photos. But then I noticed these names. Mom. Emily. Cousin Jake. Even Uncle Rob. Call after call. Texts are coming in non-stop. I raised an eyebrow and eventually opened my phone. The first text I saw was from my mother. Mother. Call me, it's an emergency. Is there an emergency? Attending the wedding? I sighed, debating whether I really cared. Jake then sent another message. Jake's reaction. Dude, you are not going to believe what just happened. Oh, now I was curious. I sat up and scrolled through the texts. And I quickly understood that the universe had given me the nicest wedding gift I could have ever hoped for. Because as it turned out, Emily's beautiful wedding had gone up in flames. I scanned through a torrent of messages, my sneer grew with each one. Jake replied, Bro. You dodged a bullet. Mother. Call me right now. This is a family crisis. Emily, please. Where are you? I need you. I stretched out in my lounge chair. I took another drink of my cocktail, and continued scrolling. Then I discovered a message that made me laugh out loud. According to cousin Melissa, the groom simply walked out. I almost choked on my drink. Did the groom leave? Oh, this was better than I could have expected. Curiosity got the best of me, so I eventually texted Jake back. My response? What do you mean he left? Jake. Dude, during the reception, full meltdown. He and Emily had some huge fight and then he just walked out. Straight up left the venue. Jake, again. Oh, and then Uncle Rob and Dad got into a screaming match over who was ruining the family's reputation. Grandma cried. The venue cut the bar early. It's a mess. I leaned back, smirking. My sister had refused to let me attend the wedding, believing that she didn't need me. And now? Suddenly, I was the first person they all ran towards. I could already hear my mother's voice in my brain. You need to fix this, Emily is devastated. Yes, no thanks. I opened the following message. It came from Emily. Emily says, answer your phone. Please, I need you. Oh, suddenly I was significant. I took a deep breath and typed back a single response. Me. Sorry, I'm a little busy enjoying my overreaction. Hope the wedding was fun. And then, I blocked her phone number. I blocked my mother. I also blocked Jake, just in case he got drawn into their guilt trip operation. Then I turned my phone to do not disturb mode, waved over the bartender, and ordered another drink. Because, while my family spiraled, I was in paradise. And for once, I wasn't bothered. The following morning, I awoke to the sound of waves breaking on the shore. The aroma of sea and tropical flowers wafted through my open balcony doors. I stretched and yawned. And for one lovely minute, I almost forgot about the pandemonium at home. Almost. Then I looked at my phone. Even though I blocked the majority of my family, I still had more than 20 missed calls from random numbers. They tried everything to contact me. Several voicemails had slipped through. Despite my better judgment, I pressed play on the first one. Mom's voice, frantic. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not the time for one of your tantrums. Your sister is devastated and we need you here. This family needs to stick together right now. I rolled my eyes before deleting it. Next voicemail. Emily is crying. I don't understand why you're doing this. You're my brother. I need you. Please, just call me back. Click. Deleted. The following one had me laughing. Jake whispered as if he were hiding in a closet. Dude, Mom and Aunt Lisa are planning to show up at your apartment when you get back. Just a heads up. Also, Grandma keeps saying the wedding was cursed because you weren't there. It's hilarious. Was that a voicemail? I've saved. I tossed my phone on the bed and stepped out onto the balcony. The sun had just begun to rise. Creating a golden glow over the ocean, I took a deep breath, allowing the warmth of it to sink in. Back at home, my family was scrambling to perform damage control. Meanwhile, I was here, sipping espresso while wearing a bathrobe, enjoying the best decision I'd ever made. And the best part? They were now feeling what I had felt when they cut me out. Unwanted. Forgotten. Left out. It was rather poetic, actually. But I wasn't finished yet. I grabbed my phone. I took a photo of my breakfast, which included fluffy pancakes, fresh fruit, and a mimosa that was so brilliant it might blind someone. And posted it with this caption. Starting my day stress-free. Hope everyone back home is doing okay. Then, just for fun, I went through my blocked messages, grinned at all of the missed calls, and ordered another mimosa. I didn't intend to call them back. Allow them to clean up their own mess. I was on vacation. By midday, I was relaxing under a secluded cabana, sipping a tropical drink with an umbrella when my phone vibrated again. This time, the message came from cousin Melissa. Melissa. Okay, I know you're mad. And honestly, you deserve to be. But you have to hear what happened after the wedding. Call me. You're going to love this. I raised an eyebrow. Melissa has always been the only cousin with a brain. If she mentioned that I needed to hear anything, it was probably worth the time. So, despite my better judgment, I called her. She answered the first ring. Oh my God, you're finally answering, she said, unable to contain her joy. Okay, are you sitting down? I gazed about in my shaded cabana, the vast ocean in front of me and the chilled beverage in my palm. Yeah, I think I'm in a good place for whatever this is. Melissa let out a breathless laugh. Okay, after the groom left, Emily had a complete meltdown. And I don't mean a few tears. I mean yelling, wailing, and throwing objects at the wedding party. I smirked. Sounds about right. Melissa continued, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Everyone was attempting to calm her down. Mom overheard Aunt Lisa suggest that the disaster could have been avoided. If you'd been there? I blinked. Wait, what? Melissa giggled. Yes, she was saying that you've always been the one to mend problems when Emily spirals. That if you were present, you would have talked sense into the groom or handled everything like you normally do. I burst into laughter. So let me get this straight. The same family that barred me from the wedding is now blaming me for not being present to preserve it. Oh, it gets better, Melissa remarked. Mom told Lisa she was acting ridiculous. And then they started fighting, loudly. Then Grandma became involved, saying Emily brought this on herself, because she offended the cosmos by not inviting her brother. I almost choked on my drink. Melissa was cackling now. Grandma lectured Emily in front of everyone, stating, If you had treated your family better, you wouldn't be alone in your wedding dress right now. I leaned back smirking. Wow, that's beautiful. Oh, and then, Melissa said. Your mother attempted to contact the groom's family to resolve the situation? His mother just smiled and said, this is your issue now. I had to set down my drink before I spilled it from laughing so hard. So, I said, collecting my breath. Where does that leave Emily? Melissa sighed. Still weeping. Still blaming everyone except herself. Last I heard, she was trying to save the wedding with some sort of backup plan. But let's be honest, she's not going to recover from this. I shook my head grinning. You know what the best part is? What? I took a slow sip from my drink. I don't care. Melissa roared with laughter. Honestly, I don't blame you. I just thought you'd appreciate knowing that karma did its job. Oh, I love knowing that, I remarked, smirking. Thanks for the update, Melissa. No problem, she replied. Enjoy your trip, and for the record, you did the right thing. I hung up, more satisfied than I had been in years. They wanted a wedding without me. And now, thanks to their own selfishness, they had a disaster instead. I grabbed up my drink and raised it to the heavens. And I toasted to the best decision I've ever made. Then I turned off my phone and relaxed back in my cabana. Let the beach air sweep away the rest of my shame. For the remainder of the day, I didn't look at my phone. Instead, I scheduled a sunset cruise. Allow the warm breeze to wash over me, and had a 5-star meal by the seaside. My family was still picking up the pieces from Emily's wedding tragedy. I was enjoying the greatest steak I'd ever had. At some point, a notion occurred to me. Perhaps I should feel sorry for her. Then I remembered how she left me out without hesitation. Yes, no. I took a sip from my wine. I took one last shot of the view. And shared it with one caption. 0 regrets. Finally, with a contented smile, I turned off my phone again. Let them stew, I was done being their backup plan. The following morning, I awoke feeling lighter than I have in years. There is no guilt. There will be no tension. There were no last-minute family emergencies that became my job to solve. Just myself and the sound of waves. And an entire day of nothing but rest. I stretched, ordered room service, and, out of curiosity, I turned my phone back on. A big mistake. Within seconds, my notification surged. Mom said, "You need to stop acting like a child and call me." Emily's response. "I can't believe you're doing this to me. You are so selfish. Your mother. This isn't funny. Emily is heartbroken. Do you even care?" Unknown number, possibly my aunt. "We need to fix this family before it's too late." I groaned and shook my head. It was almost surprising how swiftly they moved from ignoring me to expect me to cure everything. Then, one message struck my attention. "Melissa. Okay, I understand you are ignoring everyone, but please read this. Your mother is trying to gather the family for a discussion when you return. Just a heads up." I almost laughed aloud. Oh, they assumed I would return as if nothing had happened. As if I'd just come up and let their guilt trip me. And pretend the entire thing never occurred. Yeah, not happening. I quickly replied to Melissa. Thanks for the warning, but I won't be there. Melissa says. Wait, what do you mean? Me. I'm extending my trip. They wanted to cut me out? Okay. I'm cutting myself off altogether. I could almost see her reaction. A combination of astonishment and amusement. A few seconds later, she responded. Melissa. Okay, that's iconic. Tell me everything when you get back, whenever that is LOL. I grinned, set down my phone, and grabbed up my laptop. With a few clicks, my trip was officially extended. Another entire week. There's no family. There's no drama. No family discussions. Just me and the water. They never allowed me to have peace. And the best part? They couldn't do anything about it. Before going to the beach, I sent one final text. Me, Mom, and Emily. Oh, so you want me around? Sorry, I'm too busy enjoying my reactions. Have fun cleaning up your own messes. Then, for the last time, I blocked their numbers. I put my phone down. Ordered another drink. Let the sun warm my skin. There is no guilt. There will be no tension. No regrets. Just peace. And it was the best decision I've ever made. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My autistic son discovers an incredible talent just in time for the school talent show, surprising everyone. Poor souls struggle to make friends. Both the school and our family are constantly trying to help, but my sweet little boy simply cannot hack it. Despite all this, we keep trying. He is on the spectrum and loves talking about space and Apple. I am slowly teaching him social skills, but it takes a lot of face plantings for anything to stick. He absolutely drives us crazy by talking about Apple products over and over and over. One time he talked so much about Apple while I was driving that I zoned out to the point where I ran over a cone. Last night he hit me with the old, "I entered the talent show." I truly did not expect him to proceed with, "I'm going to recite every iPhone ever made." Usually, I try my best not to hurt feelings, but I simply cannot sit on the sidelines and watch my child commit social suicide. I gave an absolute no and reminded him all he talks about is Apple, and that his classmates do not want to sit there and listen to him talk about iPhones again. He bawled in my arms and said he had no talent. I let him cry it out, then we looked online at different talent show ideas. He didn't like anything he saw. Then a light bulb went off. This kid loves sound. He likes loud, annoying sounds that make me want to scratch my noise-sensitive ears out. So I downloaded him a DJ app and Tidal. We found 6 songs that carried a lot of the weight, then he began mixing. He was awesome. I couldn't believe how easily he took to it. By the end of the night he was able to echo out songs and do all of these cool siren sounds while waiting for the beat to drop. He even came up with fading out the last song and setting a vibrating alarm on his watch, 6 minutes, in order not to lose track of time. We agreed that as soon as the alarm goes off, if he isn't done, he will move on to the last song and fade it out quickly. We packed him a cool little outfit to wear with mirrored sunglasses, his iPad and speaker, then off he went to school. I have been praying all morning. His teacher was really excited for him and I hope he doesn't back out. Even if he does, I am hoping he will stick with this hobby and maybe enter in the next talent show. Comment: it went really great. Better than I expected, honestly. The kids got up and danced and his teacher said this is a moment she will always remember. She told us she wasn't supposed to say this, but he was the best out of all the kids. When he walked out of the door, he was beaming like a light. I think it's the first time he's ever felt connected with the kids. Now to the next story, story 2. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my unmotivated girlfriend who has nothing going for her and might become homeless? I, male 24, met a girl, female 22, in a community college class when I was 20. We came from very different backgrounds. I was middle class trying to find a cheaper way to go to college. She was living in almost poverty going to school because she was forced to by her parents who were threatening to kick her out. She dropped out about a year into her schooling while I continued and finished. During her first year we formed a relationship and she moved into my apartment more or less. Her relationship with her parents is pretty much non-existent and she has little to no outside friends besides 1 or 2 women she knew from high school, who are deadbeats in my opinion. I make around $80K a year so we live relatively comfortably, but there's still some strain on finances. I can't say exactly when I started losing feelings, but the fact that she refuses to work, will not cook and wants to eat out every day, does not want to go to school, and continuously wants to buy and spend money on clothes and other stuff just slowly started grating me more and more. I work in a female-dominated workplace, and seeing, having conversations, and interacting with coworkers who have so much going for them, have fun hobbies, and aspirations makes it all the more worse when your girlfriend is chronically online and spends 7 hours a day scrolling through Instagram or TikTok reels and thinks having sex is all she needs to do on her end. Our relationship isn't bad. We have fights every now and then like an average couple, have an active sex life, but that's pretty much it. From her perspective, if I broke up with her it would be out of nowhere, but I'm pretty much done. And now I could move on quickly and have nothing to be regretful about, as shitty as it sounds. The problem comes in her having no job, no finances, almost no friends and no family support unit. I'm not a monster, I don't want to make someone virtually homeless, but I don't want to be stuck with someone who has nothing going for them either. I don't know what to do. Edit. Thank you for all the advice in this post. I don't know if this sub allows updates, but I'll talk to her tomorrow about this and start the process of working this out. Relevant comments. OP explains. Yeah, if she was a toxic or just bad partner I wouldn't have too much trouble ending it, but she's fairly nice, just very lazy. I've tried to talk her into trying different hobbies or interests to get her active, but she always turns them down each time. How long? She wasn't as bad when we were still in school, she at least helped cook and had some aspirations to be a nurse. But I guess when she started getting comfortable her habits built on until it got to this point. This wouldn't have been a 4-year relationship if this was how it started. She only leaves the apartment when I take her to get food, she either sleeps or is on her phone. Is she miserable with her life? She's not really miserable. She always sends me 30+ memes at work on IG, and is honestly a pretty funny person. She has her mood swings on some days, but that's how she usually is. I've tried talking to her about this more than once, but she either thinks I'm not being serious or tries to change the subject. The one time I was serious, she said would try looking at courses again, but it eventually fell through and I stopped trying. She just doesn't really care. Update 1. For starters, I want to thank everyone for all the advice I was given on the last thread, as it helped me formulate how I would go about doing this. When I made that post, I was having an extremely bad day and didn't expect it to blow up like it did, so I don't think I was able to give her a fair defense. Also, I got dozens of messages, ranging from asking me to hand out her contact info so they could take her in as a live-in sex girlfriend, to helpful advice telling me to start hiding anything valuable. When I had said that she had come from poverty, her father is a laborer while her mother also lives a similar lifestyle to how she lives now. Their home is maybe 1,100 square feet and in a terrible place in town, and given her father's past ultimatum, I don't think he will take her back, as she hasn't been back home in years. Yes, I have talked to her about this, since January, maybe 3 times. Either by gently telling her it would be nice if she went out more to find a hobby, at the very least to flat out say she was wasting away on her phone and that she needs to get a job or go back to school. Each time she either changes the subject, makes it a joke, or follows through for a couple of days before going back to her usual self. She is a kind partner, who asks me about my day, always tries to make me laugh or lighten the mood when I get annoyed, and generally shows a lot of affection. Which makes me feel terrible when none of that works anymore, and I just see her as another person. Now for the confrontation. Last night when we were both getting ready for bed, I didn't take my clothes off and instead just stood there telling her we needed to talk. At first she was just smiling and jumping up and down on the bed with her knees, thinking I wasn't as serious as I was, but eventually she was able to read the mood. I told her something wasn't feeling right anymore, that I've tried to make this work and be patient with her for the past few years, but I didn't know how much more time I was willing to spend waiting for her to get a job, go back to school, or just get a hobby, if anything. I told her that it annoyed and grated me that she just didn't seem to care about herself, and that I hated that she had no goals or aspirations. This was probably the first time in a long time she was as attentive as she's ever been during this conversation. And agreed to whatever I was saying, even also giving suggestions on where she can apply, what courses were starting to interest her, and even said I could look over her as she submitted applications online to make sure she wasn't lying. In her head it seemed like I was still willing to make this work, and a part of me believed this would finally be the moment that she would change. So it made the next part even harder for me and for her. At first I told her I didn't love her the same way, which slowly but eventually led to me saying I didn't feel anything at all about this relationship and was jaded. I was tired and wanted a fresh start with someone who was more goal-oriented, and wanted something more out of life. When she realized what I was getting at, she started to cry and asked why I didn't mention this sooner, and I said I've always asked her to cook, to go out with me to try something out, or to just go back to school, even when I offered to pay for her classes. Anything. She said she understands that part, but was upset why I didn't say it was leading to me losing interest in her, because from her perspective it seemed as if I still loved her all the same. She started apologizing, saying she wasn't in the right mental state and saying nothing was motivating her. And she genuinely had no interest in any hobbies, the only thing she liked was spending time with me, which is all she looked forward to on the day when I came home. None of this was really affecting my emotions besides making me feel uncomfortable. So I tried to continue by saying, I think her lifestyle would be better with another person, but she immediately cut me off and became more panicked. She started to apologize again for what she's done and said she would be a better girlfriend, that she would go with me tomorrow to wherever I wanted to go and would look for courses in August that she could start doing. But she did not want to lose me since she had nothing else in life and absolutely hated that I stopped loving her. There were so many tears and snot that I said we would have this conversation again when she calmed down, and we eventually did in an hour or so. She pleaded to give her 2 months to make a change and give her another chance, and promised that she would change. Again she listed off all the places she would apply to and said she would be a better partner. I never wanted to make her homeless, so this seemed like a good settlement, even though I still had my doubts. I then reaffirmed that I wanted to see other people, but she seemed much more adamant on this issue than the aspirations issue that she would be able to fix this. She said just give her a month to try and make the relationship work, and asked me again and again on what she could do to make her love her again, and that she didn't want me to hate her. She said that this was the worst part of it all. In the only person that she had just done. It seemed as if she was about to break down again, so I said okay, we'll see how this relationship is in a month. In my mind, if I'm allowing her 2 months to get back on her feet, then by a month she would already be ready to move on. I also didn't want her to suffer a complete mental breakdown while I was still living with her, so giving her a month to let her fix the relationship would give her enough time to accept things. I slept on the couch last night and will probably continue doing so for a while. She came out at about 3 a.m. wanting to talk some more, but I said I was exhausted and we would do it tomorrow. She then slept on the floor beside me for the rest of the night, apologizing again. When I told her to stop, she silently said okay and sobbed for a bit under her blanket. But that's everything that's happened so far. This was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I regret nothing and feel much better letting everything out. I don't know how this situation will be in 2 months, but I was firm that it was the deadline. This post will probably get buried, so I probably won't do another update since I don't think anyone will care about this in a week or a month, but I will definitely private message those of you who have been helping me through this on how it turns out, or those who just want to be updated. But yeah, thanks. Edit: for all of you who keep asking what my workplace is, I'm a RN. Update 2. I feel like this will be an easier place to post since it's my page and I don't have to worry about over spamming with small or inconsequential updates anywhere else, as it's only for those wanting to read. I want everyone who has privately messaged me to know I read them all, especially those of you who have gone through similar circumstances as me and have shared your stories. I've been doing some self-reflection and think I know how I want to go about this that will help with my lack of communication skills. I know I'm not a perfect person, but I still stand by my decisions I made that night 100% through and through. I might post an update sooner in a week or so, as the day after our fight I'm filled with a bit more hope than usual. Don't know how long it will last, but better make use of it. But again, I just wanted to post this for everyone sharing your stories with me privately, as I can't message you all, as it's been helping me make decisions on what to do about this all immensely. Hello, I have a partner who wants to start taking an interest in baking. She's a bit self-conscious and doesn't like asking or looking for outside help, and I'm kind of clueless in the subject, but I want to be able to find a resource to give some help for her. Are there any YouTube playlists or something similar you would all recommend to get started for someone who has little experience cooking as well? Update 3. This is a long post, and no, I'm not going to give a TLDR. Hey all, it's been about a week since my last post and I thought I'd give an update. A lot has happened, including the explosion of my first update thread. I have over 50 plus DMs asking me for an update, so instead of copy and pasting replies, I'll do another one. I find it easier to write than to speak in many situations, so this has been a great way to help my decisions and clear my head. Writing everything down has helped tremendously, and I will continue to do so until this is all over, and I will nuke everything afterwards. After the night confrontation, we didn't really speak all too much at home, with it being dry and awkward for a day or two, but I have been told I'm a workaholic by nature, so it was easy for me to stay at the hospital as a distraction, but in that time she did start to cook again. We weren't in the mood to go out to eat together. Eventually though, I sat down with her after she asked for a more thorough conversation on why I felt our relationship was failing. She promised not to cry or get upset, but wanted me to be 100% upfront so she had a better way of understanding, stating she wanted to try everything to fix this. I was really apprehensive about this, and I can't really explain why, but given being together for 4 years, I wanted to at least make an effort myself out of respect, even though a large part of me was angry for even doing so, as I feel I've never had the same from her. There have been many different camps in my last update, the main ones being kick her out immediately and leave her before it gets worse, try to find a way to fix our relationship or end the relationship altogether but continue living with someone who would probably become absolutely neurotic. If I was going to let her stay for 2 months, I would absolutely not be dealing with that. I took consideration in all these main advice discussions and read through almost every reply. Even the most assumptive, bizarre and downright unhinged Redditor takes. More importantly, I took heavy influence from those who have shared with me their past stories, which either led to them being stuck in loveless relationships for years or eventually being able to overcome their problems and have an even stronger connection. Thank you again for your private messages. I read through a lot of your lives. Now for our conversation. She said she saw something on TikTok where couples put a phone on a table with a timer and wanted to do something similar, for each person to air what made them upset. I said that was dumb. If we were going to talk about our problems, it would be better if there was no time limit. She eventually agreed and said I could go first, asking me first when was the time that I completely lost my love for her. As I said before, it was never one action, but a grating feeling that got worse and worse until it got to this point, and I told her that, so she then asked when was the time I felt the most angry. I said it would take some time to think for me, and she said that was fine. After a few minutes something came to mind. I couldn't formulate the right words at first, but it eventually just started to come out. I told her the worst time was when I was first starting at my hospital. To keep it short, the tempo was brutal. It was constant work with little to no downtime, as I was constantly learning new things that school had never taught me, while being expected to be able to handle it as a professional. It was without a doubt the most stressed I've ever been, and I feel like other RNs can relate here. That year hardened the way I think now, that hard work does pay off, if you have the drive and the passion. I told her I think that was when I started losing feelings the fastest, seeing her at home doing absolutely nothing. Coming home to no food made, to her not working a job, to her not learning anything, completely stuck to the internet with nothing to show for it. I said it made me even more upset when I had given suggestions for jobs with pretty easy schedules, or to find a new interest in school that would pan out better than last time only to be rejected at every attempt. I told her flat out that it disgusted me. She asked me why I didn't make this a bigger issue at the time, that I should have communicated this to her, but I said there's some things that shouldn't have to be said. I shouldn't have to remind her to wash her ass, eat, do something other than mindlessly scrolling on her phone for hours at a day, every day. I also told her that after coming home from the hospital during more stressful days, the last thing I wanted was to spend my time begging my girlfriend to do something productive, so I held my tongue and settled as she was still nice and caring. I had no other reasons to end it, and so the resentment grew worse from then on. It was around here that I became more mean to my regret now, but I will still input it as I have everything else. I told her that when she dropped nursing, I was upset since I felt that she was more than capable of doing what I had done. But after spending more time in the relationship, and spending more time getting to know her, I knew that with the type of person she was there was no way she could have ever finished. Which is why I suggested easier and more laid-back jobs, less demanding majors for school, shit, even if she just cooked or found an interesting hobby at that point I would have appreciated it. Still, she chose to do nothing for years. It's just the type of person she was and why I felt done for her romantically over time. She asked me if I hated her, and I said I didn't know. I told her she was very loving and kind, but I hated how she handled her life to this point. That I felt no ill will towards her after airing everything out, but I also felt nothing else. I just felt done and ready to move on. Throughout this conversation we kept eye contact, and there were times it seemed like she would break, but like she said, she remained as calm as she could while I said what I had to say. I told her I was done and she could say her piece now, but she asked if we could continue the conversation later and locked herself in our room for the rest of the day. The next day we sat down again and finished the conversation. She told me that she thinks she's depressed, saying that she didn't feel sad before that night, just had no motivation to do anything. I had a couple of messages telling me to ask her to get tested for ADHD, but when I started bringing it up she was very adamant that is not something she felt comfortable with. I knew she didn't like needles or going to the hospital in general, but her flat-out refusing to get tested for disorders when I told her it was not at all like a regular hospital visit surprised me. She asked me if she was able to change her behavior. Would I give her another chance? I said I didn't know, as I felt nothing right now and didn't know if her doing it would bring any feeling back. Especially since it took my breaking point to do so. She asked if there was any compromise, and I told her again, if in a month I felt like there was enough reason to stay together I would, but that there was no guarantee that my feelings would return. But I would match any effort she also put out. She was frustrated by my answer, but I said that's how it would be. She gave me a piece of paper to look at that she was working on last night that had a list of hobbies and interests she wanted to look into, the two major ones being photography and cooking again. She told me that she was looking into these while also showing me her phone, giving proof that she was putting in applications on Indeed and Glassdoor for some entry-level positions that she might get hired in. I told her if she was able to show enough passion or interest in these hobbies that she showed, I would not care about her working, just anything to improve herself. But if she didn't do anything at all, then it would be best to look for a new job to help her if she moves out. I've also been asked in private messages if I have any personal friends to talk to. There's two female coworkers I confide some information in given how many hours we work together at our hospital, and who I completely trust, as in my opinion they are extremely grounded. They both said I would eventually get love bombed and this would all go back to how it once was, and that I needed to stand firm with moving on. They're very helpful friends who have even offered to let me stay over for a few nights, giving the reason that I would fall for her manipulation if I continued being anywhere near her, in their own words. But it didn't feel right since I'm still technically in a relationship, but I said I would consider it if the situation worsened. But again, I find them grounded, so I always try to take their advice to heart. Despite numerous messages from you all privately or openly telling me that this will be a mistake, I want to make the attempt to give this one last try. Though I feel heavily closed and guarded and still feel indifferent with our current situation. But a lot of you have told me this can eventually change with enough work from both parties. I have also taken the advice of those saying to cut off sex, which was my intention from the start anyway, by continuing to sleep in the living room. But each day she has been sleeping on the floor right below me, even when I tell her I'd rather be alone with my thoughts, telling me this is something she would not accept. But that's everything so far. Next update will probably be at the month mark, as there's nothing else I feel like I need to say for now. Just waiting to see if things can get better now that we're working on this somewhat.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My boyfriend provided only superficial care when I was battling uterine cancer. He even scheduled knee surgery to avoid the responsibility of caring for me. My name is Elizabeth Bennett, and I am 51 years old. Life, with all its unexpected turns and twists, has brought me here. Standing at a crossroads in a relationship that has given me 7 years of companionship, but now leaves me questioning what true partnership means, especially in times of crisis. This contemplation of my relationship with James, my boyfriend, comes at a time when my life has been overshadowed by a recent, serious cancer diagnosis. James and I met almost exactly 7 years ago, a chance encounter that neither of us was looking for but seemed destined all the same. I was at a local bookstore, rummaging through shelves looking for a rare edition of Jane Austen's novels, a passion of mine since my teenage years. He was there too, not particularly interested in books but trying to find a thoughtful gift for his sister. Our hands reached for the same prized copy of Pride and Prejudice. Our eyes met, and in that awkward laughter that followed our tussle over the book, something clicked. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was certainly curiosity that wanted to know more. From there, our relationship grew steadily, if somewhat cautiously. We were both coming from the wounds of previous marriages that had left us skeptical of love. James, with his quiet demeanor and a fiercely independent streak, was initially a puzzle I felt compelled to solve. He had a quirky sense of humor and an intellect that challenged and intrigued me. His background in engineering and his penchant for solitary hobbies like woodworking and model building contrasted with my career in social work and my more extroverted nature. Despite these differences, or perhaps because of them, we found common ground. We enjoyed long drives, jazz music, and the quiet comfort of each other's presence without the need for constant conversation. Living arrangements came naturally over time. Although James moved into my house, a cozy Victorian I had secured after my divorce, our lives maintained a certain partition. The house was in my name, and we had no shared property. His private nature meant I had little insight into his financial matters, though he was never hesitant to contribute to household expenses or surprise me with groceries or an unexpected household repair. However, the idea of marriage was off the table for James. He valued his independence too much, often stating that love didn't need the bonds of legal ties to validate it. In many ways, I agreed, appreciating the simplicity of our arrangement where love was a choice we made daily, not a contract we were obliged to fulfill. Yet despite our harmonious living and the stability of our respective careers, there were aspects of our relationship that remained unfulfilled. James was never one for grand romantic gestures. Birthdays and anniversaries were often marked with little fanfare. Gifts were practical rather than thoughtful, and celebrations were muted, often just an evening out at a restaurant we both liked. This lack of romance was something I had come to terms with, focusing instead on the reliability and steadiness James offered. Our relationship, while not fiery or adorned with the typical trappings of romance, was functional and comfortable. We had a healthy sex life, and our discussions, though rarely about our emotions, were always respectful and insightful. Yet, as the years wore on, I sometimes found myself longing for a bit more warmth, a bit more of the unexpected, the small surprises that make the heart flutter. The true test of our relationship, however, began in January when I was diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer. The news came as a devastating blow, not just to me but to the fragile equilibrium of our relationship. Cancer, with its insidious tendrils, seemed determined not only to wreak havoc on my body but also to unearth the foundations of my relationship with James. The morning I received the diagnosis, the world seemed to pause. An eerie stillness that belied the storm raging inside me. Late-stage ovarian cancer, the doctor had said, his voice a blend of compassion and clinical detachment. The words echoed in my head as I drove home, each syllable a weighty gavel marking the end of one life phase and the uncertain beginning of another. Arriving home, I found James in the backyard, lost in his latest project, a birdhouse he was crafting with meticulous attention. The normalcy of the scene, set against the backdrop of my devastating news, felt surreal. I watched him for a moment, absorbed in his task, unaware of the seismic shift about to enter our lives. "James," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. He looked up, a smile breaking across his face, but it faltered as he took in my expression. The tools fell silent, and he was at my side in an instant, his earlier levity replaced by concern. "I have cancer," I said, the words blunt, irrevocable. His arms came around me then, a strong, steady presence. But inside, my heart was a chaos of fear and sorrow. In the privacy of our living room, I laid out the stark realities of my condition. The cancer was aggressive, widespread, and the treatment would be grueling. I watched his face, the emotions flickering through his eyes: shock, pain, resolve. And then, I gave him an out. An opportunity to walk away before the journey became too difficult, too steeped in medical routines and the shadow of mortality. It was a test, not of his love, but of his willingness to face this harsh road alongside me. He didn't hesitate. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly, squeezing my hand. "I promise to be with you, for better or worse." His words should have brought comfort, and they did, to some extent. But they also stirred a tumult of emotions within me: gratitude, relief, but also a deep, gnawing apprehension. James's decision to stay with me through my cancer diagnosis should have been a source of unwavering comfort. In some ways, it was. In others, it highlighted the gaps in our relationship that I had long ignored or downplayed. As I navigated the labyrinth of surgeries and chemotherapy, my mixed feelings about his decision became increasingly pronounced. James's willingness to stay was commendable, but his ability to provide the emotional and physical care I needed was painfully lacking. The first major challenge came with my initial surgeries. The doctors performed a hysterectomy and several other procedures to remove as much of the cancer as possible. The recovery was brutal. I was in and out of the hospital, dealing with intense pain, nausea, and an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. James was there, but in a way that felt more obligatory than heartfelt. He drove me to the hospital, sat in the waiting room, and took me home afterward. But once we were home, his role as a caregiver faltered. Managing medications was the first hurdle. The schedule was complex, with different pills at different times, some with food, some without. James struggled to keep it straight, often forgetting doses or mixing up the timings. I tried to make it easier by writing everything down and setting alarms, but it quickly became clear that this was a responsibility beyond his comfort zone. He would get frustrated, not at me, but at the situation, at the helplessness he felt. His frustration manifested in a withdrawn demeanor, leaving me to fend for myself more often than not. Then there were the basics of caregiving: ensuring I was hydrated, bringing me food, checking in on my comfort. James tried, he really did, but his efforts were often half-hearted. He would bring me a glass of water and then retreat to his workshop or his computer. Meals were an afterthought, usually something quick and easy, lacking the nourishment and care I needed. I found myself relying on meal delivery services more and more, realizing that the emotional support I craved was not forthcoming. As the chemotherapy began, my world narrowed to a series of treatments and side effects. Chemo was a relentless adversary, sapping my strength, stealing my hair, and leaving me perpetually nauseous. Each session felt like a battle, and though James drove me to a few of them, his presence was more logistical than comforting. He would drop me off and pick me up, but during the treatments, it was my friends and family who sat with me, held my hand, and talked me through the worst of it. My best friend Sarah was a godsend. She organized a meal train, ensuring that I had nutritious food every day. She coordinated with my family, making sure someone was always available to help. My sister Kate flew in from out of state multiple times, staying with me for weeks at a time. She was a natural caregiver, intuitively knowing what I needed before I even had to ask. Between Sarah, Kate, and other friends who stepped up, I was surrounded by a network of support that filled the gaps James couldn't bridge. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of chemo, I lay in bed, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. James sat at his desk, absorbed in his work, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil I was in. I watched him, the man I loved, and wondered how we had come to this point. His promise to stay had been genuine, but the reality of what staying meant was something neither of us had fully understood. My birthday in April was a turning point. Despite my exhaustion and the constant nausea, I had managed to celebrate James's birthday just a few days earlier. I ordered him a gift from Amazon, bought his favorite takeout, and even mustered the energy to bake him a cake. It wasn't much, but it was a gesture of love and normalcy in a time when everything felt uncertain. When my birthday arrived, I hoped for something, anything, to show that he cared, that he was thinking of me, even in the smallest way. But the day came and went without acknowledgement. No card, no gift, not even a simple happy birthday. The hurt was sharp and immediate, a reminder of the emotional chasm that had always been there but was now impossible to ignore. I didn't need grand gestures. I needed to know that I mattered, that my pain and struggle were seen and acknowledged. His oversight felt like a betrayal, a confirmation of all the doubts that had been simmering beneath the surface. The upcoming surgery was another significant hurdle. Scheduled for mid-May, it was to be a major operation, a hysterectomy and debulking surgery to remove as much of the remaining cancer as possible. The recovery time was estimated at 4 weeks, a period during which I would be at my most vulnerable, needing constant care and support. James, in his pragmatic way, informed me that he had scheduled an elective knee surgery for just 2 days after my operation. His knee had been bothering him for years, but the timing of this decision was bewildering and hurtful. When I expressed my concern, he insisted that his knee pain had suddenly become unbearable and that the surgery couldn't be postponed. His explanation felt like an excuse, a way to avoid the discomfort of my recovery by focusing on his own issues. It was as if he was retreating from the emotional intensity of my illness, seeking refuge in his own pain. During the week leading up to my surgery, James took time off work. Not to be with me, but to go camping and hiking, his way of decompressing before what he saw as a challenging period ahead. He returned home tan and relaxed, ready for his knee procedure, while I was left feeling abandoned, my own surgery looming with a sense of impending dread. The day of my surgery arrived, and I was surrounded by my family and friends, their presence a balm to my anxiety. James was there too, but his focus seemed divided, already anticipating his own upcoming procedure. He stayed with me through the pre-op preparations and kissed me softly before I was wheeled into the operating room, but his touch felt distant, his mind elsewhere. The surgery was a success, the doctors told me, but the recovery was arduous. I was weak, in pain, and emotionally raw. While I was still in the hospital, James underwent his knee surgery and returned home on crutches. When I was finally discharged, it was my sister who brought me home, ensuring I had everything I needed. James, on crutches and struggling with his own discomfort, was hardly in a position to care for me. The irony was not lost on me. 2 patients under one roof, each needing more than the other could give. My friends and family continued to step in, their support unwavering. They brought meals, helped with household chores, and provided the emotional sustenance that was so desperately needed. One afternoon, as I lay on the couch, too weak to move, James called out from the bedroom, asking if I could bring him some water. I stared at the ceiling, the absurdity of the situation sinking in. Here I was, barely able to care for myself, being asked to care for him. It was a moment of clarity, a painful realization that this relationship, as it stood, was untenable. James's aunt called me a few days later, her voice filled with concern. She had heard about my surgery and wanted to wish me well. She also expressed her surprise and disappointment at James's decision to have his knee surgery at such a critical time. "I believe he's experiencing some form of PTSD," she said gently. "His mother died of brain cancer when he was a teenager. She went through years of surgeries and treatments that ultimately failed. This behavior is out of character for him." Her words offered some explanation but no comfort. James's past, his trauma, didn't absolve him of his current actions. I could understand his fear, his retreat. But I couldn't accept it. Not when my own needs were so immediate and profound. As I embarked on the long and arduous road to recovery following my major surgery, the physical challenges were compounded by the emotional toll of navigating my relationship with James. Each day was a battle, not just against the cancer and the pain it brought, but also against the growing realization that the man I loved might not be the partner I needed in this crucial time. During the initial weeks of recovery, the intensity of my physical pain was matched only by the emotional strain of watching James focus largely on himself. While I struggled with the simplest tasks, grappling with my newfound frailty, James was absorbed with his own recovery from his knee surgery. His requests for help with tasks he couldn't manage on his crutches, even as I could barely manage my own needs, felt like a glaring testament to his self-centered approach. Lying on my bed one afternoon, the sounds of James fumbling in the kitchen trying to make himself lunch while I rested, I couldn't help but reflect on our situation. Is this what our relationship has come to? I thought. 2 people living under the same roof, each wrapped up in their own pain, unable to support each other? This internal monologue was a constant during those days, as I wrestled with my feelings of disappointment and abandonment. One evening, as I shared these thoughts over the phone with my sister Kate, she provided the kind of blunt assessment that only someone who loves you deeply can offer. "Liz, you've always known James wasn't great with emotional stuff. But this is different. This isn't just emotional support, it's basic care, compassion. You're recovering from cancer surgery, for heaven's sake. If he can't step up now, when will he ever?" Her words struck a chord. It wasn't just that James was failing to care for me. It was his apparent lack of insight into how his actions, or lack thereof, affected me. This conversation with Kate sparked a series of internal questions about the viability of our relationship. I found myself wondering if his inability to provide support was something I could live with in the long term, especially knowing that my battle with cancer could bring more challenges ahead. I also had long heart-to-hearts with Sarah, who had been instrumental in organizing support during my treatment. During one of her visits, as she sat by my bedside, I confided in her. "He's not mean, Sarah, he's just absent. I feel like I'm going through this alone, even though he's right here." Sarah took my hand, her presence a comforting anchor. "Liz, It's okay to acknowledge that something isn't working. It's okay to want more. You need a partner, especially now. It's not just about having someone physically present. You need someone who's truly with you, in every sense. These conversations, along with my own reflections, led me to a profound understanding. My need for a supportive partner was not just a preference but a necessity, especially as I faced the uncertainty of my health. James's focus on his own issues during my time of greatest need had illuminated a fundamental disconnect in our relationship. It was not merely about his lack of caregiving skills. It was about his inability to prioritize my needs during a critical time. This realization brought clarity but also sorrow. I grieved for the relationship that could not withstand the trials we faced. I mourned the future I had once envisioned with James, now overshadowed by the stark reality of our present circumstances. My decision to address these issues with James was not made lightly. I chose a quiet evening, a few weeks into my recovery, when I felt strong enough to have what I knew would be a challenging conversation. "James," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We need to talk about us, about how things have been since my surgery. I feel like I'm going through this recovery on my own, and it's made me think a lot about our future." James looked surprised, perhaps a little defensive. "I've been dealing with my knee," he started, but I gently cut him off. "I know, and I understand that's been hard on you. But I can't help feeling like we're not really here for each other. Not in the way I need us to be. This isn't just about now, it's about what this says for our future." The conversation that followed was painful, filled with moments of silence and mutual recognition of the painful truth. James admitted his struggles with facing my illness, echoing what his aunt had shared about his past. Yet understanding his reasons didn't alleviate the reality of my loneliness and the growing gap between us. As we talked, it became clear that our paths were diverging. The love and commitment that had once bound us were not enough to bridge the gap that had formed between our experiences and needs. Deciding to redefine our relationship was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. Yet it was also a decision that brought me peace. In recognizing our limitations and acknowledging our needs, we were able to part ways with respect and a deep understanding of each other's struggles. The weeks following our conversation were a time of adjustment. As James moved out and we began our separate lives, I continued to lean on my support network. The love and care from my friends and family were instrumental in my recovery. They provided not just practical help but emotional sustenance, helping me rebuild my strength and reclaim my independence. Reflecting on this period, I realized that my journey through cancer and recovery was also a journey of self-discovery. I learned the importance of asking for what I need, of surrounding myself with people who can truly support me, and of letting go when a relationship no longer serves my best interests. In facing the end of my relationship with James, I found a new beginning for myself, one defined by resilience, hope, and the unwavering support of those who love me. Update. Reflecting on the tumultuous period of my life that followed my cancer diagnosis, I find a mixture of sorrow and clarity. When James promised he'd never leave me after I told him about my illness, I clung to that promise as a beacon of hope. Yet the reality of his presence, detached and insufficient, contrasted sharply with his words. It's a stark reminder of how adversity can reveal the true essence of a person's character and commitment. In the beginning, my heart was filled with gratitude when James said he would stay. However, as my treatment progressed and the demands of caregiving became apparent, his emotional withdrawal became increasingly obvious. It was like living with a shadow of the person I thought I knew. His physical presence in the house didn't translate into the emotional or practical support I desperately needed. It felt as though he was there, but not really with me. This was not just a failure to perform tasks. It was an absence of the compassion and partnership I needed at my most vulnerable. This experience forced me to confront a painful reality reflected in the grim statistics I had read about partners who leave or emotionally check out during illness. It was heartbreaking to recognize that James fit into this narrative. Despite his promise, he wasn't really with me. He was more of a roommate, and not a particularly good one at that, rather than the partner I needed him to be. His inability to support me, which I had hoped might be overcome by the gravity of my situation, seemed instead to deepen the existing fissures between us. My feelings of guilt, while natural, were also a reflection of the empathy and consideration I always strived to offer, even when it wasn't reciprocated. I realized these feelings were misplaced. I was battling cancer, fighting for my life, and also grappling with the emotional neglect from someone who was supposed to be my primary source of support. This realization was crushing but necessary. It wasn't just about the tasks he failed to perform. It was about his failure to be the emotional anchor I needed. Understanding that James's behavior might have been influenced by his own fears or past trauma, perhaps a PTSD response from his mother's death due to cancer, provided some context but no solace. It explained some of his actions but did not excuse them. While compassion for his struggles is important, it should not come at the expense of my own well-being. My health and emotional needs had to take precedence. The possibility that James hadn't left due to financial dependence or his own resentment about feeling trapped added another layer of complexity to our dynamic. It hinted at a relationship sustained not by mutual support and love but by circumstances and convenience, which perhaps made him act out or retreat into himself. Throughout this ordeal, I gave James numerous opportunities to rise to the occasion. Time and again, he showed that he either could not or would not meet the needs of the moment. This was not just about what he hadn't done. It was about what I needed and deserved and was not receiving. Recognizing this was crucial. It forced me to make hard decisions about what was best for my health and happiness. Navigating the end of our relationship was not easy, but it was necessary. I leaned heavily on my family, friends, and the broader support network I was fortunate to have. They showed up for me in ways that James did not, providing not only the practical support I needed but also the emotional care that helped sustain me through one of the most challenging times of my life. As I look back, I understand that it's okay to prioritize my well-being and to feel sad about the end of a relationship while also recognizing that it's the healthiest choice for me. Letting go of James was not just about ending a relationship that was no longer working. It was about reclaiming my life and focusing on my recovery with the support of people who truly cared for me. In this reflection, there is both loss and liberation. I mourn the partner James could not be but celebrate the strength I found in myself and the love and support from others that illuminated my darkest days. This journey has taught me about the resilience of the human spirit, the importance of self-care, and the power of a supportive community. As I continue to heal and rebuild my life, I carry these lessons with me, grateful for the clarity and purpose they have brought into my life.